You're listening to the Soulless Minions of Orthodoxy, alternative DVD commentaries. Our movie for today is Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. Today I'm joined by my usual co-host, Justin, the other minion. Say hello.
Hello.
Also, I have Mike Ortiz and Damon Shaw of Geek. Say hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello, guys.
Michael Felscher of Redshirt Pictures.
Hello.
And Alan.
I'm JD.
Alan.com.
Shut up, bird.
All right. We're just going to go ahead and get started here. If you want to watch the movie with us, which I hope you do, our sync point is going to be the white frame after the Paramount logo fades up. And on the standard DVD, that's about 13 seconds. It may vary for the Blu-ray, but we're going to go ahead and get started. When you hear me say on pause, we'll all unpause together, watch the movie in sync. Here comes the countdown. Finger on your remotes. 3, 2, 1. Unpause.
So, as I was saying, this was an interesting way to open the movie with this slow pull in.
I think it was
on that.
Yeah, the best way to open this film, recapping the events of Star Trek 2 and this famous scene inside the radiation chamber. And it's slightly abridged, if you notice. The way he's
there's a bit missing.
Yeah, the way Spock says "Live long and prosper." It's when his back is to Shatner right here, and that's not quite the way it happened in Trek 2. They kind of abridged it a little bit.
It's interesting that Spock is shorter than Shatner because Nimoy is actually kind of a tall dude. I was kind of surprised when I met him. Damon, how was he? How was Shatner? I love your Shatner story. Was he like a little dude?
He wasn't a little dude. He's the normal size dude.
He wasn't like 5'8" or something like that.
I think he's shorter than me. I can't remember. I just remember being pissed about him not shaking my hand. So
yeah, but how tall are you, Damon? I ran across. I walked across by you. Are you 6'0" or 6'1" or something?
No, I'm 5'10", 5'11".
Oh, I'm 5'11". Maybe you just looked. Maybe I was so starstruck by your by your Trek trivia from Trekcast. You just seem bigger.
I wonder if this
You'll notice there's no shots of Kirstie Alley from Star Trek 2.
Yeah,
that's
good point.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it, but I wonder if this was written into the script. The way it starts off as a smaller viewpoint and then slowly expands and then washes back.
No, that was probably an editorial choice down the line.
I think so. Yeah.
I still get mad that his final shot across the bow, Shatner or Kirk insults Spock by saying he was the most human. I know as a human that seems like a great thing, but he was striving to be more Vulcan, not more human.
He does.
Not at that point. After Star Trek: The Motion Picture, he comes to grips with his humanity. So this is the older Spock who actually accepts. And actually, by the time you get to Star Trek 6, there's still that joke when Kirk says everybody's human.
Yes, I find that remark insulting. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Michael, why did you want to do Star Trek 3? Was there a particular reason?
Yeah, because I have something of a love-hate relationship with this movie. There are individual scenes in it throughout which I think are fantastic, and it's amazing when you look at how many major events take place during the course of this movie. And yet I feel that the script for this movie is an absolute disaster on many levels. It is a film designed solely for the purpose of bringing back a major character, and it all feels like it was written with the end scene first, and then they tried to figure out a whole movie to get to that end scene. And as a result, you have some of the most ridiculous plot lapses in Star Trek, and some of the most ridiculous gaps of logic in Star Trek.
You're gonna have to point those out. I didn't think this movie had any.
Oh, there's tons of them. There are tons of them. Character behavior which doesn't make a lick of sense.
Every Star Trek movie has that.
I mean, they do. I mean, I'm not saying that this is unique in that regard, but this one has some of the most egregious examples of that. And every time, even as a kid, I remember watching the movie when I was like 11 years old when I first went and saw it. And I saw it several times. Like when you get to the last 15 minutes of this movie are absolute death. I remember walking out after seeing it the first time because by that point it's like, well, I'll get to that later, but it's like, Spock's coming back. There's no suspense in this movie. We're not going to end this movie with, Dame Judith Anderson coming down and saying, yeah, they both died. I mean, it wasn't going to happen. Spock was definitely going to come back. So if the whole movie's jerry-rigged around that idea, the movie doesn't generate any real suspense with it. And it just, I don't know. But I got a lot of... there's great stuff in this movie, but I think the movie's a fucking mess.
Well, I think there's a lot of great stuff in this movie, and I think that's probably because, I mean, you mentioned the ending being kind of, you said death, but I mean, I can't really agree with that. I think that it's like Empire Strikes Back. It has an emotional climax.
Yeah, but Michael, career-wise right now, could you consider yourself a producer or director?
Both, I guess. I mean,
okay. Would you watch this movie though? When you watch this movie, as a little kid or whatever age you were at, were you thinking like, "Oh, I can do what the fuck? I could do better than that."
It wasn't a matter of that. It was just a matter of that doesn't make sense to me.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there were times where I'm sitting there going, "Well, how did they know?" I mean, if you're a little kid, you're just thinking to yourself, "Well, that really? Why would they say that?" I mean, it's stuff like that. I mean, for a directorial debut, Nimoy does a pretty good job here. He handles most of the major set pieces very well. The problem, really, strictly speaking, is, as we're seeing the screenwriting credit come up, is Harve Bennett's script, which I feel was not entirely his fault. Obviously, the studio's going to have some ways that they want things done, but the whole movie exists primarily to bring one character back, and I just think a lot of it's just kind of time-killing, kind of a waste. But here we see the Enterprise. Now it's not established how long this has been. Probably only a matter of a few weeks since the event.
One of the things, though, is I mean, I think it's obvious, and they've never made any bones about it from the start. I mean, the title of the movie is The Search for Spock, and so ultimately, I don't think you're going to have a lot. If you're looking for oh my God, what's the surprise going to be? Is he going to make it? I mean, that's not what the drama in the movie's about. It's about the voyage that the characters take. And even though it's kind of sloppy, I think that voyage is probably the best character moments, character arc in any of the Star Trek movies. This movie's not about plot. This movie is about
characters.
Check out that chick's ass, dude.
It's about sacrifice.
Emotional.
They're showing that chick's ass right there.
Well, that's in Shatner's contract.
Yeah. Gotta have a chick with a nice ass behind me.
And so Sulu's got to have a dude with a nice ass.
Another thing that comes out of Star Trek 3 that nobody really considers is Klingon. The Klingon language.
Krug is the first modern Klingon, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
not just the language. He is the template.
Yeah.
But in Star Trek 1, wasn't it Doohan who did the first Klingon language in Star Trek 1?
Well, there's only like 3 lines of dialogue.
And we only see them for a couple of seconds. We don't get any real sense of who those characters are.
Those Klingons feel very, very different. I mean, they're not the robed noble warrior race. I mean, the old Klingons were really just kind of swarthy, weaselly guys. I mean, they don't become these kind of warriors until this movie and after.
Yeah.
By the time you get to 6, I mean, 6 is, really next gen defines that, but even the look. I mean, this is the first. They didn't have robes in Star Trek: The Motion Picture. They didn't have long hair in Star Trek: The Motion Picture. They didn't shoot each other on the fucking bridge for screwing up.
Oh, there's Phil Morris, the black actor there, went on to be on Seinfeld. He was Jackie, the lawyer. From Seinfeld, yeah.
He's also the Martian Manhunter on Smallville.
That's right. He does a lot of voiceover, lot of voiceover work.
Well, what did
any of the fan club people make it to this movie? Remember like the motion picture had a lot of fan club people in it. Is that all done by this time?
Yeah, I don't think they did that.
I don't. Yeah.
Well, what do you guys think of this movie? Its opening, in particular, its very somber kind of tone.
I like the opening. Is fine. It's good, actually. I think it's the way it should open.
I mean, listen to that monologue by Shatner. The Enterprise feels like a house with all the children gone. It's a very
R2D2 on the back.
A little bit. It's a very unusual, somber, personal opening, and that's why I think this movie is the most satisfying for me, because it contains the most emotion. And I often say it's the Empire Strikes Back of the Star Trek trilogy. I mean, this is part 2 of the original Star Trek trilogy, 2, 3, and 4. And I think it contains the most emotion, and because, like you said, I mean, it's called The Search for Spock, but as you were saying, Mike, it's about all the characters and their sacrifice, what they're willing to go through to get Spock
Check out that scene, man. That guy would not be looking at the screen right there. He'd be looking over his left shoulder.
He would.
Even as a kid, I was like, "Oh my, Klingon!"
Well, I mean,
heavy ass melon.
This was a sweet moment.
Oh,
when
this
that
is awesome.
The reveal of that ship.
I mean, this movie.
kick-ass.
Yeah, you said the movie establishes Klingon, but it also establishes the bird of prey. And
Now, was that a targ?
Yeah, the targ right there.
And interestingly enough,
baby.
enough, it was supposed to be a Romulan. It was supposed to be Romulans in this movie originally, and they had already designed the bird of prey when they made the change. So they didn't make. It's actually got a lot of Romulan textures and artwork on the ship if you look at it, but they just kept it for the Klingons. They never bothered to redesign it.
Now,
they wrote a backstory though that this was actually a Romulan bird of prey that Krug had defeat. I mean, he took it as his own, and there was a scene. I guess I don't know if it's in a book or if it's in something else where prior to this, where he's in contact with the Klingons. And they're like, when are you going to get rid of that ship and get a proper Klingon ship? So they did have a backstory at one point, but then they dump it, and this is just a Klingon ship now. I mean, and there are lots of Klingon ships.
I've heard that too. I remember reading or hearing that somewhere. But to look at this ship, I'm glad they changed it because granted, we only saw a Romulan ship back in the old series, but it had a distinctive look. The little kind of circle-ish almost with the little wings, and this doesn't look anything like that. This really does feel like a continuation of the what did they call the class of Klingon ship that we saw in the original series? There's the D7.
D7. The D7 was on the TV show, and the Katinga was in the movie.
That's right.
The other thing is the set for the bridge here.
Changes.
It changes a little bit, but this is the same set they use for the entire run of Star Trek from Next Generation on for Klingon bridges. That's it.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
It gets used
and originally
over and
this
over
set,
again.
I don't remember the movie, but that set was originally designed for some other science fiction movie that didn't end up getting made, and they just used it for this.
Paramount just kind of said, "Here, we've got this."
Here's something else that gets established: the Starbase.
I love this.
This thing is huge. I mean, think of the manpower it would take.
Unbelievably huge.
It would it would affect the tides. I mean, it's gigantic.
It's almost unfathomably big.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost unrealistic.
It gets
it's almost ridiculous.
Like the Klingon bridge, it gets reused. I mean, you see it in TNG and
but I just love it. I mean, it's one of those ideas that science fiction kicks around a lot, but to see it actually brought to life on screen and be that amazing and impressive was sweet.
And I think these effects for what year was this? 1984.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
these effects still hold up in my mind.
No, they're very good. I mean, it's the stuff on the planet and the practical sets that really have aged pretty badly.
Well, I know a lot of people have
ILM stuff is still great. I mean,
yeah. I mean, these are all models and composites, but I think they look beautiful. And the Enterprise is.
And there's this asshole pushing his ship right in front of the Enterprise like a dare. Like, go in front of the Enterprise when they come back in. I dare you.
That would have been funny if they just shot it and blew it up.
Yeah, just for no. We are about to get a cameo here.
Yeah.
There's a cameo coming up here.
Dude, this spaceship that station is bigger than the Death Star.
Yeah. And we're about to see a cameo from an old series regular.
Oh, that's awesome! Look at that.
Yeoman Rand is going to look disapprovingly at the battle damage as it goes by her window.
Well, I love her disapproving nod. But
she's just like, again.
Wait, wasn't Rand on the motion picture, or in the motion picture?
Yeah, she was. She was in the transporter room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a kind of a nice callback. The reoccurring theme of becoming old and being replaced. They're using the Excelsior. Here she is. They're using the Excelsior to.
They're kind of crusher-ing her out a little bit there, although it's a little bit before Crusher. It looks like red hair.
Well, it was 1984. That was the hair from 1984. So what are you gonna do?
Well, and she was a blonde.
Eat at the Y.
It was easier to cover up her gray hair with red hair than trying to cover up the blonde.
I mean, look at this lighting. I mean, everything about this movie is so somber. I mean, they have this blue, very
that chick's ass doesn't look so good from the side.
Cloaking the whole crew.
Kind of flat, yeah. And now we're about to get into the scene where we realize McCoy's got issues.
I never really noticed until I was watching this the other day. I was taking notes, but when he looks at the information here on the screen, it says S1 heavy cruiser.
Mm-hmm.
I never really thought of the Enterprise as a heavy cruiser. I mean, later the Klingons are going to say Federation battle cruiser, you know. And I never really thought of the Enterprise as a battle cruiser, just more of a ship of exploration. But I guess
that's what the Klingons refer to it as, but the Federation.
The Constitution class is a heavy cruiser.
It's a heavy cruiser.
Yeah, heavy cruiser, not a battle
series.
cruiser. But
but
That's some nice armor.
Well,
Was that the last time we saw those kind of helmets on those guys? Because I seem to recall we saw them one other time.
I don't recall seeing these uniforms used again. No,
That's full on Buck Rogers.
Those uniforms actually are from Star Trek: The Motion Picture. They're just painted. In Star Trek: The Motion Picture, they're the beige gray sort of things, and you see them like in the scene with Ilea, but I think this is just those repainted.
So is Shatner wearing a girdle here? When is everybody girdling? See, I'm not that hip on the behind the scenes.
Well, yeah, it's funny looking at us now. I mean, God, what Shatner was in his 50s when he did this, but this was 25 years ago.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
I love this, hearing Spock's voice.
it was not. Yeah, it was a very good touch. In the shadows, yeah, you wonder who. I mean,
the movie starts off strong. It goes, for me, starts going wrong in about 10, 15 minutes. But
you mean Robin Curtis?
No, it has to do with Admiral Disco, but I'll explain him when he shows up.
I think it's pretty strong until the Enterprise gets to Genesis, and that's where it starts to have problems.
Yeah, it really does kind of happen. But this is a great moment because I love the fact Kirk's like, he has no fucking idea what's wrong with him.
But look at the acting on his face. I mean, Forrest Kelly is really selling in the fact that he is completely gone.
Oh, he's off
crazy,
the
McCoy. This goes back to City on the Edge of Forever crazy.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
just a little less pissed.
And but you buy it though. You believe it all the way.
Remember,
yeah.
And there's like this great shot of them, just kind of him holding him here, this long shot, just for a second. It's really touching because it's like he's like, "What the fuck do I do now?"
There's a lot of great silences in this movie too.
Get them now.
Yeah, that's a great shot.
Glitter Vulcan symbol on the wall there.
Here's the dude I have a real fucking problem with.
This is Admiral Morrow.
Admiral. I call him Admiral Disco because he's got some very strange patterns to his voice. There's lines he has like, "I'm sorry, Mr. Scott, but there will be no refit."
Well, I think he's got a great voice.
Who talks like this? And then he has the issue I have with this guy is he single-handedly fucks up the entire goddamn movie because of a complete. When the scene comes up later, he represents Starfleet, and he's like one of the most closed-minded individuals you will ever see in your life.
I don't think he's he's cautious.
Yeah.
He's by the books.
I call bullshit on that.
Yeah, the guy who's closed-minded is the captain of the Excelsior. I mean, the guy.
He's just an idiot.
He is an idiot.
Well, yeah, but he thinks he's, got, the best ship in the universe. But this guy, what's wrong with him? He's fine.
But idiot admirals are classic Star Trek. All the admirals in Star Trek are idiots.
Well, they're
all
just
the way
by
down.
the book. That's the whole. That's why Kirk is the maverick that does what's right, not what the rules say.
Wait a minute. What did Cisco get promoted to? No, beyond captain. When he was captain when he did the whole Dominion War thing or headed up the Dominion War, he was not admiral.
He was not an admiral. He still was at the rank of captain. He was just in charge of a ship.
They have used that. Now, when did Kirk
record this? Yeah.
When did he reread? Why would he redo this?
I was going to mention that. Yeah. I mean, he obviously.
Well, now that it's a big deal, they don't just want some scientist on there.
I mean, he obviously did this after the events of 2, before the events of 3, but how much time did go by? And do you think he'd be in grief? He wouldn't want to talk about Genesis.
When did he get the order? Say, hey, by the way, in the middle of getting your ship fixed and coming back home, can you re-record that Genesis video?
They didn't want to pay BB Besh again?
Yeah, that's when he decided to record it.
Yeah, you think that's why they didn't want to have to pay her royalties?
Oh yeah, totally.
That's the reason why.
Oh, that really is? Okay, I thought you were being
sarcastic. I can't see any other reason.
Wait, who was BB Best? Was that the chick, the wife?
She was Dr. Mark.
Carol
in
Marcus.
Trek 2.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But see, because of this video, this is where Crew gets the weird idea that Kirk is in command of Genesis and carries it around in his pocket or something through the whole picture, because he's like, he's the Genesis commander, and now we got to go get the Genesis thing, whatever the fuck it is. I mean, Krug's plan, he establishes himself as a very dim bulb of a guy. He doesn't think things through very well.
Well, if you want to, I mean, he can't match up to Khan from Star Trek 2. No one can, but I think Christopher Lloyd knocks this out of the park.
I think he does a really great job. My problem is it's no one's fault. at that point, all I could see was Christopher Lloyd on the makeup. All I saw was Reverend Jim. It was really hard because it was such a 180.
Oh, yeah.
It was really hard for me not to see Reverend Jim under that. Whereas, like with Doc Brown a year later, that character fit very well with Christopher Lloyd. I think he does a great job.
I never had that problem. I always thought he was a great Klingon commander.
Yeah.
I still think I think this is one of my favorite Klingon performances.
Oh, it's excellent. I mean, look at this the photography in this movie. Like these close-ups. You don't get close-ups like this in Star Trek usually.
You know what?
Because usually
John
they're in porn.
Larroquette's in there too. So
And-
you've got these two
okay.
comedy guys.
Yeah.
Now, so here's the most contested planet in all of the universe.
And we've got one ship.
And the Federation sends out basically a Tonka toy with the Forrest Gump of Starfleet in command of the ship.
Well,
Now, I don't understand this. This is one of those moments where it's like, you'd think they give him shields or something.
well, I'm sure they have. He just didn't turn them on in time. But I mean, this
No,
was another.
because he was too busy standing by for evasive. The fuck stands by for evasive?
Was it?
Stand
I
by
was
for evasive.
I was listening to Nimoy's commentary on this earlier, and he was mentioning that he wanted to kind of feminize the ship a little bit, and that's why they have pink chairs in this bridge.
Yeah,
He wanted it to seem weaker compared to the Enterprise.
Well, he didn't have to do much. I mean, it just put a dork in command, and don't have it have any weaponry or any ability to defend itself whatsoever.
It's not
Well,
very-
it's not going to defend itself against a bird of prey.
no.
So
Well, it
that's
could have at least lasted more than one fucking shot.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, a bird of prey is one of the weakest ships in all of Star Trek. It's a 5
It's
to
not
10
that
man
big.
cruiser. It's
At
very
this
small.
time, it's small, but it does. I mean, at this time, that's not established.
I know it's not established. It's established after, and the Grissom is. Oh, god damn it! I'm trying to remember the class of ship. I don't know why I know all this shit, but the Grissom is a science vessel, and it's really not built to go up against stuff. So, if they had gotten their shields up, they would have been able to last a really long time against a bird of prey, because a bird of prey is very tiny. They are not very big. They don't have that much firepower. This captain is just a fucking idiot.
He is a complete tard. I mean, this guy, he sees a goddamn Klingon a bird of prey decloak, and he just waits. And is like, oh my god. Well, that's just damned intriguing.
To be fair,
and that's supposed to be Christy Alley, though, right? That's the same.
Yeah,
That's
the
the
Same
Alley
character.
character.
Yeah,
Robin
Saavik.
Curtis.
Anybody know why she's not in the movie? She just wanted more money, or was just like fuck this?
She
or-
was afraid of being typecast, I've heard. I've also heard she wanted too much money. I've heard a million different reasons.
Well, I think Robin Curtis does a really good job.
I like Robin
her.
Curtis.
I think she has
a lot of people
See,
don't like
I
her.
don't think.
No
I
way.
think she's
No
terrible.
way.
I think she's a better Vulcan. I think than
Totally
Kirstie
not
Alley was.
hot. Like
But-
2 on the hot scale.
Oh, she's cute. Come on.
Oh
but-
no.
Her line
no.
delivery in this movie is pretty stiff. I gotta be honest. She's nice, but I mean,
It's supposed to be though.
Saavik
yeah,
isn't
but this- I know, but it's just she doesn't.
she's not a Vulcan.
Half Romulan, right?
She
she's
is
half
half
Romulan.
Romulan. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Ooh.
Is that canon now, or is that
It's
just the
canon.
original?
Yeah, that
'Cause
is.
I seem to recall that that not being the case. I'm going to hit
Wait a
memory
minute.
off.
Does she
over
wait?
here.
Hold on. Does she go on to be Kim Cattrall?
no.
No, that was originally that was the intention, though.
Yeah, it
They
was.
were going to have Saavik be the character in Star Trek 6, but then they decided not to do that. They brought in someone new.
Okay.
They pussied out.
Well, I like the fact that we brought back Merritt Buttrick to the movie because usually characters don't get carried over like that. But
Who is that?
it's
David.
Kirk's son,
David.
David Marcus.
And it's sad because
That's the guy from Square Pegs, right?
Yeah.
Yep. It's sad because he passed away. I think he had AIDS.
What the hell is Uhura wearing around her neck? What the fuck is that?
Well,
It's
she's
future
Swahili.
clothes.
She's Swahili. Yeah, that's
Future
Yeah,
clothes.
I think I fully endorse horrible future fashion because
I
we've
love-
done worse than that in our own lifetime.
Well, I love the fashion in Star Trek. I love seeing what they wear on their off hours.
Now, this is the first time we've seen Sarek since the original series. Am I correct?
That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure the only time we actually saw him in the original series was in Journey to Babel.
Yeah, that was his only appearance that
Yeah.
I remember.
Or
Yeah.
as Sarek.
Well, as
Right.
Sarek.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, he was a Klingon in motion picture.
Well, this is
And he's
interesting.
the first Romulan too.
Yes, yes.
Yep.
This
You
is
better-
another really good scene here. I love the tension between the two and the realization that You know, it's one of Sarek's most emotional moments because he doesn't understand what the hell's happened. There is, however, and this didn't occur to me till many, many years later, a crucial gap of logic here that occurs near the end of the scene. That when Kirk left, they shot Spock's body out in the torpedo. And they just assumed it burned up in the end. They had no idea it soft landed at all. They had no idea what happened to Spock's body. They assumed it burned up in the atmosphere because it comes as a complete surprise to David and Saavik that they find the thing in the first place. So no one knew. And yet, at the end of this, you must bring his body back to Vulcan. How does anyone here know that Spock's body is just lying on Genesis waiting for anyone to go pick it up? As far as they know, it's ashes in the atmosphere.
He doesn't. Sarek doesn't know that his body is intact still.
No, and neither does Kirk.
No, he just wants his Katra. That's all. I mean, for now. I mean,
he says you must bring them back both to Vulcan. So if that was the case, and they both knew that Spock's body was gone, then wouldn't Kirk just take McCoy to Vulcan?
That's really all he needs to do.
Well, that's all they try to do. I mean...
Well, no, but they go to why would they go to Genesis? They would have absolutely no need to go to Genesis because they don't know Spock's body's even there. It comes as a complete surprise to them. So that everyone is suddenly all on board this idea of going to Genesis to go get Spock's body, and no one has ever discussed with anybody, wait, did we know his body's there? Why are we going there again? I mean, it's a big, like, what the fuck? Did anyone
Actually, though, when they come across the metal cylinder, they're not surprised. They kind of sort of immediately go, oh, it must be Spock's thing. They're surprised to find there's nobody in there.
What's more disturbing than that is how many gay Vulcans are pulling this type of shit in this scene right here all over Frisco. Like, hey, dude, pull your pants down.
Well,
I thought you had the mind meld with my forehead.
Yeah.
Well, before
Traveler.
About the refusion, I don't think that's a plot hole, but this scene right here, the way how intimate it is with these close-ups and how it reenacts the most painful moment.
Vulcan intimate in Frisco.
I think it works. I mean, and you see that tear glistening in Shatner's eye, and he's
this scene is great.
Almost muted.
See his fucking balls reflecting in his fucking eye there.
And there's just that little sigh from Mark Lenard, like, oh,
it's not there.
It's not there. I thought it, and he's just like, he's almost embarrassed that he got so worked up over it. But it's individually. I mean, and again, these are great individual moments, the great character stuff. They get the character stuff in this movie dead on. That's the problem I have with it. It's so good with those, but the broad strokes of the movie are just a complete failure to me. And I just wish that they had really kind of looked at this from, well, okay, if it's about us getting Spock back, do we have to save getting him back to the end of the picture? Can't we bring him back midway through and then have another problem erupt which threatens his life and everybody else's? The whole thing just, I don't know.
I think that would be...
Here, hold on. I have a question for Mike.
I don't think that... I think moving that to the beginning wouldn't really be an improvement.
Well, there would be no emotional...
Then you just have the whole half of the movie...
Well, not to the beginning of the movie.
No, even like halfway through. I mean, that's... The point of this movie is the search for Spock, and you find him halfway through, and the rest of the movie is, well, we just have to kill time because we can't be 45 minutes. It is, that's part of the problem with the ending, the stuff on Vulcan should have been a lot quicker, but then we get a movie that's 65 minutes long.
Here we get the
most detailed flight recorder visual.
And it's on videotape in the 23rd century.
And he's wearing the Davros glove.
The Michael Jackson glove?
He's got the Davros glove.
The reason Kirk goes back without knowing whether or not his body is there is because it's not dangerous, and he's doing it for his friend. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't he? That's the man he loves.
That's what I would go with, Damon. I mean,
but again, what is he hoping to find?
Right, but it's like I'm going to go to a planet where he probably isn't there.
They can't. I mean, they don't. They never say that he assumes his body is unretrievable. I mean, they shot his body out in traditional.
Okay, hold on. I have this is a real question here. Yeah. With Star Trek 2, all this whole thing, the pinch, the remember, all that shit. Yeah. Do they have it in mind when they're writing it, or is this some badass writer
that was
shot after? That was done. That was changed. Nicholas Meyer didn't shoot that.
Yeah, that was Nimoy and Bennett.
Oh, that was not in Star Trek 2.
No, not originally. Meyer.
It was in the movie. It wasn't in the script.
No, I mean, they put that in there as a way to, can it be ambiguous enough to where maybe we could use it to bring me back if necessary?
Yeah, Meyer's cut didn't have the remember part, and it didn't have the ending where you go on the planet and see the tube lying there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So
that was shot later by ILM.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the whole...
But it was all still in the movie, though.
Yes.
Oh, okay. The whole ILM topic, all the people, the dipshits that are saying, hey, the typical Star Trek versus Star Wars. Star Trek is Star Trek because of ILM. So,
sure.
I hate hearing that. Oh, dude, Star Wars. Well, what the fuck do you want?
Yeah, ILM is so much bigger than Lucas. They did the effects for everything. Isn't there like a good 12 years where they're the only ones who won any Oscars for special effects?
Well, they were the only ones out there. I mean, they were literally the only ones that could do this stuff.
The other ones, this quality.
The other ones started popping up because they couldn't do everything and there were too many movies.
Well, yeah, but that really didn't even start happening until the really late 80s, early 90s.
Oh yeah.
And part of that was people leaving ILM and making their own studio. Yeah.
There's the sperm of ILM is in every effects house out there. I mean, it's and then there's the tube just lying there all casual like.
There's the tube that almost I think all of us have touched that, right?
Yeah,
I have.
Yeah.
That was at Star Trek: The Experience. That's the tube that was in the museum.
Was it the actual one?
Yeah, that was the actual one.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, every time I saw that, I was like, "Oh!" Every time I saw that, it always made me think of Star Trek 3, not Star Trek 2, but Star Trek 3. Oh, I didn't know that was the real one.
Yeah, they actually the straps were on it at Star Trek: The Experience because you could open it and people would actually get inside and lay down and pretend to be Spock.
I'd be there fucking some chick.
Well, there was not that room.
It was public, Alice.
Well, that was our first.
You close it.
That was our first,
what are they going to do?
Harbinger of the proto.
The question I have is,
yep.
How hot does it get in that thing if you're shot out of it? And second, if Spock suddenly, for some reason, is reverted back to a child state, how do you get out of there? I never. How strong was he as an infant to be able to crawl out of a fucking tube? And
these are the most insanely nitpicky points.
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
no,
I
these
think
are questions I've had.
A little bit.
No, these are questions I've had because.
Oh yeah, but they're still nitpicky points.
Oh fuck you!
I mean, does it really matter? He got out of the tube. Does it really matter how he got out? I mean, come on.
And here's the conversation which basically dooms the whole picture for at least the people involved because this guy. The Vulcans are a founding member of the Federation. They're one of the most revered species in the entire galaxy. And this guy says, I've never understood Vulcan mysticism. And he shuts the whole shit down based solely on the fact that he apparently considers Vulcans to be weird, spooky hippies that he doesn't want to deal with.
That's a nice stretch from I don't understand mysticism to they're weird, spooky hippies.
Well, I don't think it's a stretch at all.
Why would he say that?
No,
first of all, the Vulcans are the most revered in the Federation. Says who?
He doesn't want Kirk to risk the Enterprise on a personal mission. That's what he.
The whole thing's against regulations, and he doesn't understand Vulcan mysticism. A lot of people probably don't.
He's a Rick
the Vulcans are very. It's not like the Vulcans advertise their beliefs, even going back to
this guy has nothing. This guy has nothing but a plot device in order to throw up obstacles, so they have to steal the ship and create an action sequence.
Well, what's wrong with this? Somebody has to stand in front of Kirk. Somebody has to prevent him from going.
Just serious. But you think he would be the Admiral Starfleet if he lets a captain take a ship that's been decommissioned into a quarantined area? That's that's like Colin Powell doing that. I mean, this guy is he is going to follow orders.
Now,
I don't like anything
Kirk's
wrong.
reaction is it's bullshit. It's complete bullshit.
And that's Kirk. That's what he always does.
Well, Kirk said that to Saavik. He said, I swear it. That's our word right there.
And
we know.
They go into this thinking we're getting court-martialed.
Well, they know they are, and
they don't care.
They don't care.
What budget Logan's Run alien was that in the elevator?
I love this little video game.
This is awesome. I know.
Tribbles.
Oh,
they don't know.
Oh, of course. A lot of people compare this to the Mos Eisley Cantina. I like to bring that up.
This is light years from Mos Eisley.
Well, yeah, they like to bring it up.
Mos Eisley was cool.
Well, the fact that the alien who comes out speaks kind of in backwards talk like Yoda does.
Yeah, that's a weird. I mean, it's this whole scene is very bizarre.
Yeah, and the Federation security guy is kind of strange at the end too.
Yeah, Ray Parker Jr. Yeah, he's weird. He's I don't. I can't wait for
clothing.
I don't know what the deal with her
I can't wait for him to sing Ghostbusters.
No, I've seen waitresses dressed like that before.
Yeah,
really.
Frisco.
That guy always looks like
I do like
emo
that
to me.
line. To your planet, welcome.
Yeah.
Lap dance.
I thought this scene worked pretty well. I think it's a good. And the movie needed a little comedic relief, and I think this provided it in spades. I think
it's not terrible. It's just an odd sequence.
Get away from me, you old queen.
I think DeForest Kelly is a funny guy, and he was good at that dry wit, and I think he sells it here. And he would be trying to, charter a ship. And
I think the premise would be good, but yeah,
this guy's just Yoda. I am not.
What doesn't make any sense is why didn't they all just charter a ship? Just they know people who have a ship and not steal the Enterprise. That's one of those you're going to a quarantine area, get a ship.
You think James T. Kirk is going to go anywhere in anything other than the fucking Enterprise?
He's not going to hail a cab.
Ooh, let me rent the Millennium Falcon and go in here.
I know.
Wait. They just said he says he has money. He just said he has money. I thought there was no money.
There is no money, right?
Yeah. So what?
The Federation does not use money, but other worlds do. The Ferengi use money.
So
but where does he have it? Kirk's been pirating all these years and he has a pirate chest?
McCoy does illegal operations on the side.
Well, they may not have money in the sense that we think of money, but he may have valuables that are worth, monetary value.
Well, it's not just that. The Federation will give you stipends if you ask for it. They provide completely.
Who are you going to call?
So if you need,
I do like the neck pinch coming up.
Yeah.
Oh, the perfect captain.
That's the scene of this movie, in my opinion.
What's weird is I've always thought that guy was the same as the Admiral.
Yeah, it looks the same. It looks like a younger version of the same dude.
Well, the older guy, they just gray up his temples fakely. So for years I thought this was the same black guy, and yes, I'm a black guy. So it's okay, everybody. No, not at all. They had the same fro, except for one had a little gray.
They're on the cactus planet.
Snow cactus.
Well, I think this. A lot of people complained about the Genesis planet, the set obviously looking like a set, but it never bothered me, to be honest. I always kind of like Star Trek sets. I think. Well,
Mike brought up an interesting point today originally, and it was supposed to be Hawaii where they shot all this.
Yeah, Harv Bennett really wanted it to be shot on location, but Paramount wouldn't let them. And then this set almost burned down. Yeah. And Bennett on the commentary for the DVD says that he was kind of hoping that it would, because then they could move the shoot to.
Wasn't Shatner the one who saved the day?
One of the people.
Yeah, he was.
He had to make T.J. Hooker like in 2 days. So
I love that line. How many fingers
am I holding up? Yeah, that's good.
It's not very damn.
See, this is a great scene.
Yeah, again,
and this brings up another thing here. All throughout Star Trek, and certainly classic Trek, they give people shots constantly.
Oh yeah.
This show really strongly endorses prescription medicine,
which is the problem we have today.
Here we go. This is Sulu with the most badass jacket I've ever seen.
Yeah, I thought I said that earlier. Look at that.
Yeah, but these guys have the stupidest little baseball cap hats.
Yeah, this is not a very. Now this guy right here that Sulu gets in the fight with, he got a Vulcan neck pinch from Spock outside in Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
I'm hoping for some judo here.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's the same guy, isn't it?
Yeah. So this guy should not be in Starfleet anymore because he keeps getting the shit beat out of him no matter where the fuck he goes.
One punch, bitches. One punch, and JTK takes him down.
I know.
Unfortunately, this is like the only Sulu moment
bizarre modified Ippon Cianagi. Kind of weird. Not really a throw.
It's the only moment he
George
gets.
Takei didn't like this scene originally. George Takei was not fond of this scene originally.
Well, he looks cool doing it.
Oh, no. And it wasn't until the audience loved it that he went, oh, I guess it does work.
That's George.
He's a badass in
the Kobayashi Maru has set sail. I love that.
To the promised land, yeah. And again, a callback to themes from the the previous movie. You know, we had them dealing with age with the Excelsior, and then we have life and death again with the Kobayashi.
Oh, and they are about to go into a no-win scenario.
Yeah.
Oh, and they know it,
And
but
it is.
it's worth it, you know, to them.
And
so.
here we have the dumbass who we never see again. He apparently got the Excelsior 4 feet out of space dock, and then they fired his ass.
What is
Why
this?
does he have a baton?
I don't know.
I don't
But what is
The
This-
riding
this-
crop.
what is
this
this character's
voice.
name?
The voice in the elevator is Leonard Nimoy.
Oh, really?
He's credited
wow.
as Frank. He's credited as Frank Force, but that's a pseudonym. It was Leonard Nimoy's voice. Transporter room. Thank you.
I thought it was
Frank
interesting
Force.
that Scotty is promoted to captain of engineering. We hadn't heard that sort of
Or sense.
rank before. Yeah.
Yeah. And then here we have little douchebag.
I wonder how.
Mr. Adventure.
I wonder how old Nichelle Nichols is in this. Actually, is in the scene here. 40, in her mid 40s.
Late 40s, I think.
Well, she was 27 when the show started. 28.
And so that would have been 20. Yeah, late 40s. Yeah, I would have put her
Yeah,
20 years later.
Yeah, she's. I got her autograph a couple years ago, and she still looked. I mean, fairly good for a. Yeah, I mean, she didn't look like an old lady, you know.
Yeah.
Well, she still looks pretty good.
Really,
I mean,
and really cool. She's super nice too.
See,
fortunately,
I always wondered why did Uhura have to stay behind? I mean,
Yes. Why do they leave Uhura?
plenty of instances where like, I will set it and run up there.
Right.
And if anything, she's going to get in a lot of shit. Because you can't keep that guy locked up in the cabinet forever. What does she do? Blow him to make him quiet? I don't know.
Or.
She meets up with them
on Vulcan. Yeah, she says,
so
"I'll see you
she
with
must
the."
leave immediately after this.
Well, then
Yeah.
how does she get to Vulcan?
Well,
she
she's-
was able to get a fucking ship and go to somewhere.
Well,
it
it's
makes
not that
it
hard to
worse.
get a ship to go to Vulcan.
No.
Yeah.
Wait,
Let's-
this is James T. Kirk that just walked into your transporter room. All you have to say is, "Hey, guy, do this. Press this button for us
But
so we
fuck
can
off.
go."
Or fuck off, yeah.
Right.
Oh
like,
yeah, Kirk's the biggest superstar of all time.
Well,
Yeah,
He's a huge superstar.
At this point, Kirk is not like a wanted criminal. He just left the admiral, and the admiral said no, and he said, "All right." I mean,
Fuck
they
you,
broke out
Yeah.
Sulu, but how much of that news has traveled around?
Yeah,
Well,
you know,
obviously, it hasn't traveled very far at all.
Yeah, but not only that, Damon. It's Kirk with the entire original bridge cruise.
Right.
Like if they're
You'd
all
be asking
together,
for autographs.
it's ticker tape parade time type of thing.
Right.
You know?
They are heroes of
And
the
why
Federation.
is Chekhov dressed like?
Like that. I don't know. I've never.
I mean, all the other ones, I kind of like. I could see fashion evolving into that in the future. And
he looks
Chekhov,
like a gay. He looks like
Well,
a gay Robin Hood.
he is a Rusky, but I think Uhura staying behind. I always kind of thought of, well, she says, "I'll meet you at the rendezvous." I always thought that she is going to Vulcan to let them know that they're coming. They're getting Spock, and they're coming.
well, they could
She's-
just send a
she's the
message to
relay.
Vulcan.
Well,
Then
yeah,
again,
They
they
were
don't
getting-
know.
And
I
actually,
know, I
isn't
know.
Spock's father? He's still got to be on Earth at this point.
Yeah, I always thought of it was a more of a covert operation, so they didn't want to do anything too out in the open, so they left
No.
it to.
Because she's black.
Or
Yeah, there
Or
were just too many black
or-
people in the movie.
Nichelle Nichols asked for too much money and said, "You got 2 C's, bitch." You're
Yeah, I wonder if the original the side guys, like not Spock, not Kirk, and all that stuff, when it came up to negotiating for their fees, if it was like, come on, dude, you're Sulu, you want to be in the movie, you're gonna do it for this, or get the fuck out, you know.
Well, that eventually becomes kind of problematic for them because a lot of if they do bow out, the fans will be upset. But they also know that they don't have any other options. So
Yeah, I always wondered if that's what happened in Generations, where there was only Scotty, only Kirk. Nimoy was in
Scotty-
Generations, right?
No, but what's his name is in there? Chekhov.
yeah.
yeah, Nimoy actually it was written for Spock and McCoy, but both Nimoy and Kelly turned it down because they figured they said their final piece at the end of Star Trek 6.
Yeah,
Right.
that was the wise choice.
Oh,
but
okay.
this is, I think, to me, this is the most, I don't know, the best sequence, I think, in every Star Trek film, the escape from the starbase, stealing the
But the
Enterprise.
I love the
problem is-
janitor guy looks up and it's like the Enterprise is backing up.
See,
And
but
it's just going so slow though. That was the one thing. It's like this is the slowest escape sequence
Well, they can't
in the
move-
history of cinema.
They can't move that fast
Actually,
inside a starbase.
considering how big they're traveling, they're actually traveling extraordinarily
Yeah,
fast.
I know they're going very fast. Blah blah blah.
well,
And there's Miguel Ferrer as one of the helmsmen there.
And yeah, transwarp, that didn't really work out so well.
I didn't know. But
No.
this bridge design didn't really work out either.
Michael,
Well,
who is Miguel Ferrer? Who was
Miguel
that?
Ferrer
I
is
love
one
that
of the
it's
helmsmen in the
huge.
front. You'll see another close-up of him here coming up in a
Yeah,
second.
what else has he been in, though?
Oh, he
Oh,
went
a
on
ton of shit.
RoboCop and Leviathan or Deep Star 6 and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Blank check.
okay,
the
okay.
Stand,
I was never a fan of that Excelsior design. I always thought it looked like a bug.
I think it looks totally cool.
Yeah.
I think it totally looks cool.
We hadn't talked about it, but this I think this to me this is the best score. This is James Horner, and this piece of
it's a
music
great
here
score.
is so moving. The fact that
He
all they're trying
carries
to get
over.
Oh yeah.
His themes and everything from 2. It's a good fit. I mean, it was.
Yeah. I mean, just it just helps the drama so much. The fact that all they need to do is get it through these doors.
And these are nice effects here too.
Oh yeah, they're beautiful, and the music is what sells it. Of course, the looks on their faces, but in that great moment, okay, and now Mr. Scott, open the doors. I mean,
I never realized they actually kind of spoofed this a little bit in Galaxy Quest.
Yes, they did.
When they were going out and they accidentally scrape against the side of it on the way out, which is sort of what should have
And
happened.
I love this.
Here.
Pulls out, starts to turn, and here comes the big ship.
Here comes the big Tonka toy ship. Yeah, the bridge on that thing looks terrible. And I imagine Sulu got command up and it went, "Oh, will not do. We're redesigning this bitch."
well, nothing,
the outside looks really cool.
Nothing can beat the Enterprise. I mean, she's the grand old lady. She's the best ship. She always will be. You can't.
You think they
outclass
made
her.
that chick bald in the background just so hey, remember Ilea? Yeah, she's dead.
I recall hearing somewhere that there was a story where Sulu was actually supposed to be the captain of the Excelsior originally.
Right. Well, he was going to get it, yeah.
But because of the controversy around Genesis, they didn't want to put a controversial person in that seat. But in this, it certainly seems like that guy's been the captain of that ship for a while. So I don't know if that's another thing that they had thought about at one time and then just dropped for simplicity's sake, or
well, because Sulu was supposed to become captain in Star Trek 2. There was a scene in Star Trek 2 where he was promoted to captain. So that was what was going to lead into him being the Excelsior captain here, but obviously they felt that they wanted to keep the original crew together, which was a good idea.
You know what's weird? That's 2 actors that have played Martian Manhunter in this movie.
Oh, Miguel Ferrer?
Yeah, he plays Martian Manhunter in the shitty pilot that never made air.
What?
Nice.
No, that was David Ogden Steyer's play.
Oh, is it? Okay. He looks the same.
And I like the sound effects. It literally sounds like an old Chevy running out of gas.
What is that captain's name? The character? You guys know offhand?
I don't.
No idea.
I cannot remember.
Yeah,
Captain
it's
Styles. Yeah. Yeah,
I just think it's funny,
Something gay.
even though it's in space, it just sort of
Yeah, it's like it just drips. How do you get? And then they apparently canned his ass right after that.
And Scotty did that by pulling out 4 batteries.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that's a bit much, but all right, whatever.
See, you can actually forgive everybody that did this stuff except for Scotty. Scotty sabotaged the Starfleet vessel, leaving Earth and the surrounding area unprotected. He actually is a fucking terrorist. Like
It was because it was not an in-service vessel. It was still an NX.
it doesn't matter.
Count.
It doesn't matter. That's a serious offense that he did.
And stealing a battle cruiser is not.
Stealing a battle cruiser is horrible, but he did 2 things. He stole a battle cruiser and he sabotaged a Starfleet vessel. He should have been kicked out of Starfleet.
Well, they were
put in
all
jail.
kicked out of Starfleet.
No, they weren't.
Or they would have been if they hadn't saved the Earth from the whale creatures.
Oh, that's right. They go off and save the Earth from whales. That's right.
Remember that was Kirk's punishment. Everybody else got absolved, and Kirk took the full punishment, and the punishment was being demoted to captain.
Yep. And this is the second Spock, third Spock in this movie. Because we hear baby Spock for half a second at the beginning.
And what was the second Spock?
Spock. The first Spock is Spock.
Well, there's going to be
First
a
flashback Spock.
right. There's going to be a
Right.
teenage. There's going to be a teenage
that's-
Spock, and then we're going to transition to the adult Spock after that.
Right.
There's a lot of Spock.
And the problem is, for me anyway, and I just remember this, especially when we come towards the later part of the movie, Spock just lies around. He's pretty much just unconscious for the last half of the picture. And it's like, oh, well, that's exciting. I mean, there's nothing to do. He's just a Hulk. So what's wrong with Spock? Oh, shit,
he has no katra.
He has no soul.
If you have no katra, you just lay around.
Yeah, well, this kid's doing okay.
I of wish they would talk about Spock because what did Genesis actually do to him? Because he got reconstituted after he died. He got resurrected.
He got pulled, he's basically redone.
This is a clone of his body, essentially.
Is it a clone?
Well, no.
That's what Nimoy said on the commentary.
Well, the Genesis effect regenerated his body. It didn't clone him.
But if it regenerated, it wouldn't be smaller.
No, I mean,
it would just be...
the Genesis effect was to create life from the beginning. So he was, he was brought back to baby form, and then he grew up because of the accelerated rate, because of the proto matter.
But what did it reconstitute? I mean, it took a sample of his genetic material and created a new body.
I never thought that. I just thought it de-aged his body, his dead body.
I think we're giving this a lot more thought than the people who wrote this movie ever did.
Oh, well, Leonard Nimoy said it was basically cloning his body.
Okay. I mean, I believe that's what he said, but
here we go. Oh my God! Let's stare at this computer screen for a little while longer, don't we? Yeah, we could be getting the fuck out of here right about now, or putting the shields up, but no, not gonna do that.
He doesn't know what it is. This is the first appearance of a Klingon bird of prey.
Okay, well, even if he didn't know what it was, wouldn't
he should have put up the shields?
Yeah, he should have put the fucking shields up. And the Grissom dies like a bitch.
Look at those El Camino Klingons.
I'll remind you that in Star Trek 2, the whole thing happens because the greatest captain in the universe didn't raise his shields when the Reliant was heading towards him.
Even though it was a Federation ship and they hadn't made any threatening gestures.
And regulations say that
I know what regulations...
ship...
Don't quote regulations to me.
They lied about the reactor overload. It was clearly... Even Saavik, a cadet, knew better.
Yeah, Kirk admitted that.
Captain, you got to diss Kirk, too.
Yeah, okay, but then a captain... in the most hotly contested planet in the entire universe, suddenly sees a ship
captain on a non-combat vessel
decloaking behind him in a threatening gesture, heading straight for him. His first instinct is to go, I don't know.
He's not a very good captain. I mean, that's the end of the story.
And you know what? And as a result, he and his whole crew are fucking dead.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's it. He's just not a good captain. I mean, there's good captains and there's not good captains.
Well, he's a fine captain. He's just the captain of a science vessel.
The Enterprise B?
He's not. Oh yeah, Captain Harriman. I mean, he's not.
Tuesday.
He's not. He's not a battle-hardened captain. Like Justin just said, he's a captain of a science vessel. He's.
We're gonna stand by for evasive, Jenny. I mean, come on.
No, he's not a moron. He's Dr. Crusher. When Dr. Crusher was captain of what was the name of her ship? The
Essex. No. No, it was the Pasteur.
Pasteur. Yeah, the Pasteur is just a fucking.
Yeah, that's
doctor.
an on-the-nose name for a medical vessel.
Very on the nose. Well, that's fitting though.
Saavik is just not hot here.
They did lose all of the sexiness. And, by the way, officially, she is not half Romulan.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's official.
It's
not
as far as canon. It's never been in canon. That was other stuff.
I really like Robin Curtis, and I wish she would have gotten more screen time in Star Trek 4. And I remember hearing that there was a subplot they were fooling around with, and it got taken out, that she was actually staying on Vulcan because she was carrying Spock's child.
Yeah, she got knocked up.
And I thought, wow, they could have really taken that story and spun it out a little bit more, and that's really interesting.
Still can.
I think the subplot was she was on the short bus, and they needed to give some equal opportunity to less intelligent Vulcans to let them have their chance at being real science officers.
Oh, come on.
Okay, Michael, you're directing her. Imagine you're directing her, and she's doing this performance. What's going through your mind? You're like, this is probably about all we're going to get out of her, or...
Well, at that point, because the problem is, the character is not supposed to be particularly emotional. She's supposed to be very by the book. at the same time, Kirstie Alley was able to bring something else to the role. Maybe it's something just intrinsic in the actress or the actor who plays a role like that. I just don't think Robin Curtis had anything else going on. I think she pretty much just read the lines, did them, and that was all there was to it. There's just, for me, comparing the two Saaviks, it's not even close.
Curtis
Yeah,
does
exactly,
it a lot
exactly.
more like the most of the Vulcans that pop up on like Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. I mean, really, it was Spock, Saavik, Tuvok, and even Sarek is sometimes, at least on Journey to Babel, a little stiff too. But you could see a clear line, for me at least, from Robin Curtis to was the chick on Enterprise, to Paul?
Yeah, to Pal.
In terms of being just kind of like bland and stiff, and a lot of Vulcans. I think that was one of the weaknesses of the way the race came off.
Another directing question. Okay, so Michael, you're sitting there, and they have that spark and they have that magic. Do you see it right then?
You would absolutely see it, if not right there in the performance on set. You would see it in the dailies. You would see it in a number of places. You just get a sense, and it's not something tangible. It's not something you can say, that's exactly. It's something that just happens as a result of the right actress in the right part combined with the right circumstances. I don't think Robin Curtis is a particularly great actress, but I think she's settled here with a role that requires her to simply really plot out plot points more than really do anything else.
Yeah, Saavik in Star Trek 2 had a nice role.
She's here to pretty much give information that we can't discern for ourselves. Like in this scene here is a perfect example. She says, just in case you don't really understand what's going on, Spock's aging with the planet, and the planet's Spock, and Spock is the planet, and blah, 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 and what are you going to do?
She's exposition last in this one.
Yeah.
I wonder if that has anything to do with Kirstie Alley's decision not to do it. I mean, if you read this part and you were her, it's like, I went from being like the up-and-coming hot Starfleet officer to the one who explains all your scientific bullshit.
I seem to recall that she turned it down before this movie even really got very far. It was like she was out of the picture long before then. Because like during that 2 years or something, she'd gone some other gigs and was off doing other stuff. But I don't know, maybe she read it and went...
the Pon Farr callback.
It's a nice callback, yeah.
Kirk, he's gonna be getting a little horny.
Was it established in a mock time that it was every 7 years, or was that just in this movie?
Yes,
okay.
it was.
It was in a mock time.
They totally did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but like in Next Gen with Data, they didn't have Data there like this guy's going to be the greatest character of Next Gen. I mean, Spiner totally transcended that role and made it his own. So it's not necessarily the right. Or my question is it not just the writing? It's the actor that actually rises up and
I think it's the actor.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The breakout character type of thing. Just like Happy Days, Arthur Fonzarelli wasn't necessarily the breakout guy, but just the actor just hit on all fours.
Yeah,
and
the same people who wrote Captain Picard and Data wrote Troy and Crusher. And it's like, I don't think it's because they wrote the characters worse. I think the characters were maybe poor, not as well conceived. But I think if you look, a lot of the actors, like you look at the characters in the first couple of episodes, and they're very different characters, and they're behaving very differently. I think it takes the writers a while to learn the nuances that the actors are bringing to it, and to start writing to those performances and letting it grow organically. And that's what I think really works in these shows.
Yeah, but okay, say Kim Cattrall was in this role right here, she would have that spark and start transcending this just kind of like let's come.
I don't know. I mean, I think you guys are maybe giving Robin Curtis too much flack. I mean, yeah, she's Miss Exposition, but I think she's a quality actress. I mean, look at her in Gambit in TNG. She can act and she can play with emotion. She was a Romulan,
In all honesty,
I don't know.
They shouldn't have made it Saavik. They should have just made it another generic Vulcan, because what you run into with a problem with her is she was an up and coming officer. She was serving on the fucking Enterprise, and then she was up against one of the a big ass villain. And she comes out on top, and then she's stationed on a fucking science vessel? Like, what the fuck happened to Saavik? Because the character is completely different than the character in Star Trek 2.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's the problem with Saavik, is you're comparing her to a character that isn't the character that she originally was.
If I was Spock right there, she would be ass raped right now.
Ass raped. He's about to finger bang her. Look.
Well, this is another one of
He's going to
those.
jump on her and ass rape her. He should be.
This is another one of those scenes that sets up something in the Star Trek mythos. This kind of Vulcan foreplay. The two fingers caressing each other.
The sad thing about this scene is
he should go right to the rape choke.
Yeah, rape choke.
Well, I think this is
it's a good scene.
There's a lot of quiet moments. Someone said that when we started, but there's a lot of good, quiet, quality moments, and where it's all on the music and the expressions of the actors' faces, and especially this scene.
I just don't think it leads anywhere. It's in and of itself, it's a good scene, but there's really no payoff for it, and then Spock eventually just ends up being a lifeless Hulk on the ground.
That's because Saavik fucked his brains out, boy.
Yeah, well, what's that? Okay, he's doing the Ponfar. Does she? Here's the El Camino driving Klingons.
Yeah.
Dude, we got to score some ephedrine.
And that's John Larroquette.
Yeah, John Larroquette.
It is? Which one?
On the
The
right.
one on the right.
Yeah, barely recognizable John Larroquette.
It was?
It
From
is,
Night
yeah.
Court?
I do not deserve to live.
It's Maltz.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maltz.
Yeah, Maltz.
Oh, no way. I never knew that.
Oh yeah, no, that's Mr. Larroquette.
What I thought was interesting
to come out of the movie
about the kind of Klingon portrayal here, and again, just showing how quickly they sort of defined it. You've got Krug, which is kind of honorable and still crazy. I mean, he's crazy. The planet's blowing up, exhilarating. But then you get to Maltz, and Maltz is actually pretty straightforward and pretty clever, and he's the one that's like, a little bit more reasonable, and the other guy is kind of weaselly, and they really do capture so much of the characteristics that really became the Klingon culture in this movie.
They really did. You're right.
I think it does not really get that credit.
It doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
I mean,
doesn't get credit for
we haven't even mentioned the fact that this is an odd-numbered film, and this unfortunately gets lumped with that curse because it's part 3. But this is, I think, a quality picture, and I'd rate it probably on a scale of 1 to 10. I'd probably give it an 8 or a 9.
And I think at this point, like things do to me, things start to go bad. Now that everything's collided on Genesis, and then it's like, well, what do we do? Well, we fight the Klingons. I still don't really understand why they blew up the Enterprise.
Well, because it was a way to distract you from the fact that there really wasn't much going on at that particular point.
Yeah, it's like that's where this is where the things start to happen a little bit. Convenient that the planet's blowing up just now.
Well, he needed to trick Krug. His ship was at his mercy. He had to escape.
I mean, I understand.
Yeah, but you think of all the other times that Kirk went out of his
creative standpoint. Why?
You think of all the times that Kirk went out of his way to save the ship at the risk of fucking practically everybody. But then it's like, well, we need to get down the planet. Why don't we blow up the ship? Yeah, sure, okay. I was like,
and even
damn.
like the whole, okay, we've installed an automation system. Well, that's because
the automation system was fried. Remember?
Right, and that's the plot device, so the ship can be fried, so that then they can evacuate the ship and blow it up. Well, and again, this is
that's a good look.
Let's blow up the Enterprise more than what is the logical extension of events here.
It is let's blow up the Enterprise, but it's him sacrificing the Enterprise for Spock.
Yeah, I mean,
that's truly what it is.
It's the life and death theme again.
It's clumsy. They didn't do a very good job of doing it. He gives up his ship for the chance at getting back Spock.
Well, I totally agree. I don't think
again,
it was clumsy, though.
I
think
understand from that. I just think from a creative standpoint, you don't think you've made that point already with him losing his son and his career. We have to throw ship on top of it.
I think that's. I think that's awesome. I mean, they just keep pulling punches. I mean, he's not having a good day. He loses his son. He loses his ship.
I mean, this is just my opinion. I don't think that is the creative process that it led to. I think it was those other things don't have the weight of Spock dying, and we have to put something big in here.
We have to kill time.
The Enterprise flying through the sky in the trailer, and people will go, "What? The Enterprise is going to blow up? No, that can't be what happens. That's another ship." I mean, that to me was one of the things that sort of contrived in this movie. Maybe I'm wrong, but to me, I was like, "What? What's the point of that?" So they're just going to, I mean, we know they're going to have to just get another ship.
Right.
You know, at this point, it becomes you've already killed off like you're really, to me, the main character. I always liked Spock more than Kirk. You know, you're not going to top that, blowing up the ship. Well, hell, we just resurrected a dead Vulcan. You think they're not going to get a ship back?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seems kind of for shock value more than plot value.
I think it is credible as shock value, but I always thought it added to the story, not detracted. But
my problem, and I might point out I hit on some of these things really well, because it's just a matter of once they get to Genesis, now it's a matter of, okay, we are here at Genesis. How do we get Spock back to Vulcan, and how do we fill up a half an hour, 45 minutes, and how do we get some major events in there to kind of distract people from the fact that there's really not much forward thrust to this narrative. And so they kind of pace these things out. Kirk's son dies. Then the Enterprise blows up. Then the planet blows up. So it's just, like I said, it's just arbitrary, and it's not strung together particularly well. The second half of this movie really does fall apart in comparison to the first half.
I was always a little disappointed by this space battle too.
Well, I think it's the great space battle, as short as it is.
Really?
But
There is no battle.
Well, I love it.
It's just we shoot them, they shoot us, and then the fight's over.
Him screaming right there. I mean, it's awesome. But I think this is the first mention of where Kirk says, or Bones says, "May all your guesses be right." You know, when he says they have to decloak before they can fire.
Yeah.
You know, I think is that what sets up that the fact that Klingons cannot shoot while cloaked? I mean, is that where it comes from?
Well, this is the first time Klingons have ever been cloaked, so
it's true.
But the Romulans couldn't fire when cloaked either, so
right.
It was an assumption that they were just making.
It's a safe assumption.
Yeah,
because they had sort of established the Klingon Romulan technology exchange when they used the wrong ships for the Romulans.
I do love the fact that the automation system's overloaded. I wasn't expecting to take us into combat. It's like, well, you were expecting everything else. You were expecting to be able to pilot this entire ship with 3 or 4 fucking people.
I was always wondering, why did they put an automation system on this ship?
Who did?
Scotty did.
Scotty did, so they could get there.
So why? So how? No, but he does that at the beginning. He says at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
So they were taking the ship back in for refit, and he's putting an automation system on there. But what do you need an automation system if you think you're just going to be refit and sent back out?
Right.
Because you need it to malfunction later in the movie.
No. Here we go. Let me go with this scenario. The order had come down for the Enterprise to be, sacked, and they didn't know it. But the order came down to put an automation system in because the Enterprise is a very famous ship, and it would go on display where people could go inside and look at it and do things like that. So it was going to become a museum ship, and that's why it needed to be automated.
So why does it need an automation system?
So it could circle the Earth in orbit. See, look at me go at 1 a.m.
Yeah, so much for the museum idea.
Yeah, because we don't have things that can do that now. Without an automation system. I thought the whole point of the bridge thing in the computer override from Star Trek 2 was so that ships can tow other ships.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
So the automation system exists just to malfunction.
Here, you can hear it. This is exactly how the automation system thing came into being. All right, so we're going to have them steal the Enterprise. Great. How are they going to get 300 crew members to do that? They're not. We're just going to take the 4 key members, the cast members. Right. How are they going to do that? Automated system, maybe? Okay, sounds good.
The thing is, couldn't you have already, at least my impression was always the ship's computer can kind of do the whole thing. So if you have an operating ship's computer and you're not expecting to go into battle, you just like, hey, we are here, we need to go there. And then we need to beam down, and then we need to come back. So it seems like the ship's computer has always been able to handle something that simple.
Yeah.
Again, why does the automation system even there?
Hey, here's what's fucked up though. They're getting ready to kill like one of the people in the party there, and they're like, they kill a son, and everybody's like, "Whoo! Oh God! Thank God it wasn't Spock." Everybody's happy that Kirk's kid's dead.
It's even more than that. It's thank God it's not Spock or Saavik, Because Saavik is actually a character that people do like, and there's no connection to David Marcus. There's absolutely none. You were told
the connection is he's an asshole in the second movie, and he's an idiot in this movie.
You're told that he's
paying for the sins of screwing up the Genesis planet. But I do think we should pay some due respect to this scene that's coming up here. My favorite scene in the picture, probably, and you could probably argue it, but I think it's probably William Shatner's finest moment as James Kirk in the entire series, or at least one of them. It is a remarkably wonderful, emotive moment from the captain that we don't really get to see very often, and it was part of it was accidental. He wasn't really supposed to trip, but they worked it into the rehearsals, and they ended up doing it after all. But it's a great moment, and it's Shatner gets a lot of shit for his acting in these pictures and other pictures, but he fucking nails it here. He absolutely nails this scene.
Well, I think the visual death of David is very successful in the fact that they didn't give him a hero's.
No, he dies.
No, he just dies badly. I mean, he acted almost instinctively to protect Saavik, but still he just got murdered very brutally on screen.
So that right there was an accident.
Mm-hmm.
In the rehearsals he kind of stumbled a little bit, and then they worked that into the final bit.
Oh wow!
He liked Shatner and Nimoy both liked the fact that Kirk really, for the first time, loses his footing. He literally cannot.
He cares. He cares a lot more than the fucking audience. I'll tell you that.
Well, and the crew. I mean, look at all of them. Look at him like that. They've never seen him broken like that. No. Even Bones is surprised.
Although for me, it was kind of like he's really broken up about a son he didn't know 2 weeks ago.
He's known for
he knew
2
the
or
son
3
existed,
months.
though.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and
he existed is different from known by a
True,
long shot. Existed and never bothered to visit for how long?
Well, but he was asked to stay away. Carl Marcus didn't want him around, and that was established in the
for exactly this reason.
And there's never any indication that he wanted to be around.
Yeah, but if they would have killed Spock, Kirk would have went to fucking Kronos and destroyed Vulcan, or was destroyed the Klingon homeworld.
Now, wouldn't that have been interesting if they had done that? If it was so funny if they killed Spock at this point in the movie, and you'd be like,
well, at this point, they don't even know Spock's body's been regenerated. They don't know that yet.
Yeah, they do.
No, she says that a certain Vulcan of your acquaintance. I thought
which comes as a complete.
Did she already say that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
she already said that.
Okay, she did. Okay. Well, I mean, but they didn't come there with that knowledge initially. They just went there to get his body. Yeah.
Yeah, and Michael, in the 2009 Star Trek, where they blew up Vulcan, it was kind of like, are they going to bring it back? At the end,
don't.
The last 5 minutes, I'm like, okay, when are they going to do the time thing? And Vulcan comes back.
No, it doesn't happen. Vulcan's fucking gone, man. It's out.
And that's that is one of the things that made that powerful. Is the old rules are not necessarily going to apply.
Yeah, all bets are off.
I know we're not talking about that movie, but what my favorite part about Vulcan blowing up was the fact that they showed it in the trailers and everybody was like, "Oh, that's Romulus. That's Romulus, right?"
I just thought it was a planet. I didn't even think it was Vulcan.
They showed it to you over and over again,
and you didn't buy it. You didn't know what it was.
Didn't know what it was, and then they're on Vulcan like, "Oh, it's gonna blow up." It's not gonna blow up. It's Vulcan. You can't do that.
I like how basically there is still this sort of Klingon nobility and honor, like when he's like, "I have 2 minutes to you and your gallant crew."
Yeah, I love that line.
Well, here
and
we
it's
get
and it's a little bit of a callback to Khan in Star Trek 2.
We get Qapla', he says Qapla', and here's the callback to "Let this be your last battlefield."
Yeah.
Which is a really cool reference.
Oh, it's awesome. And I got really excited when I went back and watched it because I had forgotten that it was in the original series at all. So when I saw them using this code sequence in that episode,
wait, okay, what is it? I don't know what that is. So
it's the destruct sequence 2, code 1, 1A, 2B. That's all from "Let There Be Your Last Battlefield."
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
They established that it has to be the science officer, the chief engineer, and the captain doing it all in a row. And it's again, it's very well done, all this stuff. But I'm like Mike. I question the decision to blow up the Enterprise at this point.
Well, I think that Kirk knows that's his only card he has left to play.
Well, he comes to that conclusion awfully quick. That was the thing. It's like, All right. Well,
I think it's because we're seeing Kirk emotionally affected in a way we've never seen before. I mean, never has he been struck so personally.
well,
And the fact that his son,
died?
but his son was just murdered.
Yeah,
down
but
on the
I don't
planet,
believe
and-
Kirk blowing up the Enterprise as much as I believe Picard. When Picard like calls abandoned ship in Next Gen, it's like, oh shit,
Yeah.
like this is real shit. Like here, it's kind of like, okay, well, there's going to be
it's
some
an
kind of
arbitrary.
trick. Yeah, he's going to come back. It's not really going to happen. You know, when Picard calls, it's like, oh fuck, oh
Yeah.
this is really screwed up. You know, type of thing.
I mean, Kirk does even question it himself when he looks up and says, "What have I done?"
Yeah.
But I just, when you say Kirk, that's the only card he's got. Well, that's because the writers chose to write it that way at this point. Every single time his back is up against the wall, he finds something, and this
Right.
time they opt not to. Whereas normally, oh well, sir, I can do this and this and this, and then they beat the thing. But I think it was just a deliberate let's up the stakes. Which maybe maybe there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe that's one of the things that sort of takes this movie up a notch. Is there is some big loss, not for Kirk, but for us, the audience.
Dude,
we
all
lose
these
our
all these
ship.
Klingons drive 78 Camaros.
I
And
did
they're
think
also
this was a
very
cool
stupid.
sequence when he's like, "Get out of there!"
It takes him a little while to figure out what the fuck's going on. He's like, that's the only thing speaking.
Well, that's the other thing too that Picard does. He does silent countdown. Remember?
Well,
he
I always thought of it. They're not actually speaking English; they're speaking Klingon, so he doesn't understand what's going on. But Krug, being a commander, being more intelligent, knows that it's a countdown. Even though
if
they're
I
not speaking
saw a
English.
series of numbers counting down,
well, he
on
may
a
not
screen,
read them as numbers.
You
I
wouldn't
mean,
know their numbers.
Yeah.
Well, then he's deserved
They're
every
symbols.
fucking bit of his death. And
So
then
if
we
you
watch-
get on a Japanese craft that's exploding and it's counting down, is it your fault or the fact that you don't understand the language?
it's your
You know,
fault.
this was kind of weird here because the way that the ship blew up
Yeah.
looks kind of different than what's remaining.
Oh,
here.
okay. Now that's burning up through the atmosphere, but the
Torpedo
missile,
doesn't. Yeah.
The torpedo doesn't.
Well, the
That's-
planet was.
that's-
I
in-
believe the line was the gravitational fields were in flux. It
Yeah.
could have soft landed.
See, when I heard her say that, I heard her say, contrivance. Oh, yes, contrivance.
Oh,
how-
contrivance in a Star Trek movie? How unusual!
Yeah.
You know what's strange though is when you self-destruct the ship blows up from the warp core, and the
This
warp
one, the
core
whole section blows up.
it's just the front. It doesn't make any sense.
Now, here's the problem I had. Look at this. They're standing on a fucking cliff, and they're looking for life signs. They're on a cliff overlooking this entire valley, and the Sulu points way off in the distance down below to where the life signs are.
You
And they
don't see
cut
where
from-
he pointed.
Yeah,
He just
because
went
there
that
was-
away.
Yeah, but in any case, they're standing on the cliff edge. So wherever the fuck he's pointing on is way down below in the valley. Even if it's right down below in the valley, it's not anywhere near where they are. Within a couple of minutes, they're on this scene. I'd like to know how the hell they got down there so quick.
You
I mean,
forget
it's like-
Genesis is actually a small planet.
They have those rocket boots like in Star Trek V.
Yeah, they had rock.
Another Spock, different guy.
Yeah, different
Kirk's an
spots.
expert rock climber, remember?
And here they are. They've traversed an entire cliff in 5 fucking seconds. And
Because they're awesome. It's Captain James T. fucking Kirk. He can do whatever he needs to do.
Don't touch him.
And of course, he just flings this guy like a piece of paper.
I love that.
Hits
Ouch.
him, fucking kills him.
And he hits the rock, too.
Ow!
Ow!
Ow.
Somebody
see
should find
judo
out
in it.
where that actor is.
He's dead.
He shows-
killed him.
He shows up at conventions, doesn't he?
Well, they all do.
The guy playing Spock?
The guy who was Spock before
They
real
should get all
Spock.
the Spocks from this movie in one convention.
That would be so awesome.
That would be.
Including baby Spock voice.
I do like the way the Klingon flies back when he gets hit by the feet. We never see it like this.
Yeah. For one time, it's just it's a force blast with a little
Yeah.
anti-gravity thrown in.
You know, Spock is the character that has had the most actors play him.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's
really?
played by- yeah, because you've got I think there's another time where there's a young Spock at some point.
There's a baby Spock in
Star Trek 5.
Star Trek 5.
Right. You've got Zachary Quinto.
The little kid in the movie for the remake.
The little kid from the remake. You've got a little kid version of Spock in the animated series.
And then the 16 of them that appear in this movie.
Exactly.
Now, here's, again, this was, and I remember thinking this at the time when I saw it. I was 11 years old. There's a very dumb moment coming up here, which Spock is now unconscious. He's just a life. For the rest of the movie, he doesn't do shit. He just lies around in a hulk on the ground. Krug is about to beam down right in front of them, pointing a gun at them. And what does he say the minute he beams down? Over there, all but Kirk. Now, this crew is concerned. They've got their crew member back. He's lying unconscious on the ground. There's no way off of this planet. It's destroying themselves around him as they speak. What do? They drop his ass, walk away, and go stand over by the side, leaving Spock on the fucking ground. He didn't say, over there, all but Kirk, and leave the comatose Vulcan on the ground. Just leave him right there. Why the fuck would they leave Spock? And I swear to God, you could almost see it on Kirk's face. Like, pick up Spock. Pick up Spock. Pick up Spock.
Yeah, because at least they could take McCoy and Spock back to Vulcan if Kirk dies.
Yeah, because, there's no way off of this planet at this point. So they should at least picked him up and try to get him off. Then Krug could have said, no, leave him here, just because fuck you, that's why. But they don't even try. I like
Krug's reaction, too. He's taking this, the loss of his crew pretty rough, too.
I don't think he's taking the loss of the crew bad. I think he's taking the fact that Kirk got the better of him.
Yeah, it's a defeat.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think you could see the general sense of urgency when he's screaming at them to get out. He may be a jerk, but he doesn't want to lose his crew. Still.
No, but at the same time, I was like, God, that guy with the toupee fucked me. God damn it! Oh, son of a bitch.
I think this set really works. I know it's set, but I still think it looks good in cinematic.
There's a couple moments where rocks fly up and kind of come up out of the ground where it's like you can almost hear the crank.
There's a point where the cliff face starts to fall off, and it falls off in a very kind of strange,
very slow way. Yeah, over there, all but Kirk and. Oh, yeah, I guess we should all go over there. Drop Spock.
Well, this is something we didn't get in Trek 2. We get a mano-a-mano old-fashioned fight. We
hadn't had in a long time.
And we get the double kick, don't we?
Yeah, we get all the classic Kirk moves in this.
I'm open for some judo.
Well, now, see, actually, they were not holding Spock. Spock was lying there. When he said walk over there, they went. And Kirk does say take the Vulcan, and he says no.
Yeah,
why not? Because you want it.
Yeah, because his crew forgot to pick his ass up.
Yeah, but he didn't say pick up the Vulcan. He just said get over there. They weren't holding Spock.
He said over there all but Kirk, and it never occurs to any of the crew, we better take this opportunity to take our comatose friend with us because God only knows.
It occurs to them to do exactly what the man with the gun is saying.
But this just, I'm sorry, they're going to just leave him there?
Nitpick.
Bullshit.
Nitpick.
No, that is not nitpick at all. It's a dumb fucking move that no one should have left in there like that.
No, I think you're just...
Well, as you noticed, they pulled away, but Kirk still stayed at his side. So they weren't abandoning him completely.
Yeah,
rape joke. Doing the rape joke.
Yeah, we were...
Kirk's flat out getting rape choked.
But,
that's
the two hands to the side.
Yeah.
2 hands.
What was Kirk expecting? Well, Krug beams down. And he's like, "Give me Genesis." Well, what was he expecting Kirk to do?
To give
him. I never.
Oh.
Was he expecting?
Oh.
Here you go. Have Genesis and convenient paperback form for you. What the fuck do you want from me? It's just I don't know.
He didn't think that he's carrying it in his pocket, so to speak.
No,
he did.
I know.
He knows he has access to it. He can get it for him.
Yeah, it's just.
Well, first he wanted the scientist, then he wanted to pull Genesis from the Enterprise memory banks, and now I think he's just batshit crazy.
Yeah, now he's just pissed off. He's like,
he was already batshit crazy to begin with. He was obviously.
Yeah, he was.
He's a rogue element from the Empire. The Empire has really no idea what the fuck he's up to.
Well, all Klingons in movies are. There isn't a single Klingon in any of the movies that is actually following orders from the Empire. If you actually,
there goes.
The Chancellor in Star Trek.
Yeah, that was
That was weak. That looks like a fucking museum.
If you go that frame by frame, you can see the wires lowering that down. Ow!
You can almost hear the cliff going.
But again,
that's a good.
Styrofoam rocks are one of the things that define Star Trek.
Yep,
It's a very good point.
Oh,
classic, line right there.
Had enough of you.
Along with "Get off my plane," one of those lines.
Although I don't know why he jumped down there after him.
Well, he was upset there in a fight.
He was already out of commission at that point. Just leave his ass down there.
Right, like you.
Well, he had the upper hand. He had the high ground, so he was taking advantage of it by jumping down like that.
Anakin.
No, I have the high ground.
We're not talking about that movie here.
I know, but what I'm saying is he had the high ground. Why did he jump to the low ground?
Well, I meant he had the high ground. The advantage would be to jump down on him to get the jump on him.
The advantage would be to wait until he tries to get back up.
And then kick his ass.
And then kick him in the face.
He was being brash.
Because Kirk likes to jump.
He does.
Yeah, I know.
That's a good point. But this is, we mentioned the score a little bit, but this is one of the most rousing pieces of the score, I think.
And then him speaking in Klingonese.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful. But finally, they I don't know if any of you have the extended 2-disc set of it.
Oh, it's they finally included this suite on there.
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, for so many years, people were trying to get a hold of this, and finally they released it. And this is one of the best pieces in the whole set.
I love it.
And then coming up, the last thing you see of Genesis is probably one of the best effects that ILM ever did, is when the bird of prey is flying away and the Genesis planet just like vomits out this huge section of lava into space. It's an amazingly well done shot, and it still holds up. Yeah, but there's John.
That's John Larroquette, right?
To live.
John Larroquette. Yeah,
I'll kill you later.
I'll kill you later.
Well, see, you mentioned that they keep using this Klingon bridge set, but did they mention why they remodeled it for Star Trek 4? Because it's the same ship, but the bridge is totally different.
Well, they did. They needed it to be a little bit more like, they wanted to set it up more like a conventional bridge, because the one in this is not set up that way. They wanted it to be almost mimic because if you look at the way it's structured in Star Trek 4, it's almost like the Enterprise bridge, only in Klingon format. Everyone has their regular station. It's just rearranged a little bit. Here, it's not so much the same way because all the people are spread around.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought,
that does look good.
Yeah, it does. And I always thought that was something that Scotty did while they were on exile on Vulcan. He had the time to reformat the bridge.
Yeah.
That's the way I always kind of justified it.
I mean, it was enough time for Spock to get all his lessons and stuff.
All right, well, movie's over for me. I'm gonna go take an extended shit for the next 30 minutes.
Well, you know what? I mean, I know a lot of people say this movie, when it gets to this part, it really slows because there's no stakes left. But I think I don't agree. I think it's just an extended denouement. I mean, we know, of course, that Spock is going to come back to life, but there's still always a little bit of us that wants to think that maybe it won't work, because nothing is for sure in life. And even this moment here, I mean,
when it comes to Hollywood movies in 1984, believe me, there are definitely sure things.
Well, in life, there is not.
Yeah, but we also said there's no way they're going to kill Mr. Spock in a movie.
But look at this scene here. I mean, when do we ever get to see these two be intimate together? To see DeForest Kelly, to see Bones let his guard down in front of Spock, even though Spock is unconscious.
Oh, and my problem isn't necessarily with the scene in and of itself. It's very well staged. It's very well done. I mean, it's got a point to it. I just question the length of it at this point in the movie. After everything that has just happened, all the shit that has just transpired, to go with a very solemn, spiritual scene, which has an ending that is not really in question at this point, for me, it doesn't end the movie on the note that it needs to. It just drags out.
Well, I think you said spiritual, and that's something that Star Trek usually never gets. I mean, this movie is soulful. I mean, when can you say that about Star Trek?
Well, that's great. Again, it's just this is a pacing issue with me. It's truly a pacing issue.
I think it's
all this.
I agree.
Coming now.
Yeah, I agree with you. The pace is slow, but I think it works. It gives you a payoff that emotionally is very, very uplifting. I think very satisfying to me.
They've just been through death and life together.
Blah, blah, blah.
I mean, this is great. I mean, this is the first time we ever really see Vulcan, isn't it? I mean, we never saw Vulcan before this.
Oh no, we've seen it amok time in Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Well, yeah,
But not to this. Not to this detail, though.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, you saw a lot in Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Oh yeah, they did have some wide match shots. Yeah,
There was that giant statue.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, a lot of that wasn't until the director's cut version, where they
No, they
really
were-
gave you. No, there
Yeah.
seriously. There was
But I
only
mean,
one. There was no wide shot. There was only one big wide shot of where the altar area was. All that other stuff was added for the director's cut. Because they didn't have the money.
Aerodynamically it doesn't make sense for a ship to have wings, but this bird of prey is just a beautiful design.
It's a beautiful ship.
I mean, why does it need to bend its wings? It doesn't, but it's effective.
It's designed for space. Space, actually, there's no need for aerodynamics.
Well, that's what I
at
meant.
all.
Why
No, that's
the
what I
Borg
meant.
Right, but
cube-
it's
that's why the
also-
Borg cube works.
But this has, this has landing pads and a ramp. This ship is designed to enter an atmosphere and land.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
And get straight out of the ocean and have whales in it.
Baby whales that are going to die
Whales.
lonely,
Lonely and forgotten.
forgotten.
Vulcan Stonehenge.
Yep.
God, I hate Star Trek 4.
Hey, did you make it to Stonehenge, Mike?
Yes, I did. It was very cool.
Oh, bad. Is it all roped off, like you can't get to it and stuff, or chain linked off?
Yeah, you can't. There's like a path around it. You can't get to it. But there are some, I guess, summer tours where people can actually go up and touch the rocks.
Well, this scene here is giving us a lot about Vulcan culture that we'd never really get before.
And that's what I really liked about it. I mean, yeah, it may be kind of long, but this, the Vulcan mysticism that the Starfleet commander does not understand is something that I really like a lot about Star Trek.
I mean, look at all this visual, this visual dessert we're getting right here. We never get to see Vulcan in detail like this, really. All these costumes and
hot chicks.
the ritual and I
Is
mean,
it-
There's a
Is
lot
that
of hot
si-
Vulcan chicks.
Is that still Bela Lugosi's wife, or is that someone else now?
No, that is Dame Judith Anderson, who actually came out of retirement. She was a longtime actress. She won an Oscar for Rebecca back in the 30s. She came out of retirement to do this because I believe her grandson or her son said, "Oh, you have a chance to be in Star Trek. You got to do that."
Oh, wow.
So that's why she's here. This was like the first time she'd been on screen, I think, at that time in like 13 years.
was it? Am I getting my stories mixed up? Was the actress in the motion picture? Was she a recurring character? I mean, did we see her before
No.
when Spock was trying to go through the Kolinar? No.
No, they've had
that was-
three old women kind of Vulcan master things.
But that
there was one I think it was T'Pol or T'Pau.
Wow.
In a-
that was
was-
the first one.
Okay.
Yeah, Celia Lovsky played her. I don't know who played the woman in Star Trek, the motion picture, but it was not the same actress or the same role.
the motion picture was
this-
Bela Lugosi's wife, though, right? Or am I totally lost on that?
I'm not sure.
I don't
I've never heard her affiliated with Star Trek before. I didn't even know he was married.
But it was actually a major coup getting Dame Judith Anderson for this role. She didn't do. Like I said, she hadn't worked in like 13, 14 years at this point. She didn't do stuff like this very often. So to get her, I remember Leonard Nimoy commenting that he was just like bowled over to have her. Which is probably why she has such this role is beefed up considerably from what it would probably normally be.
Well, she sells it as good
Yeah.
as can be. She makes one darn good Vulcan. I mean,
Yeah, she's great. I mean, she's got the perfect authority for it.
I mean, it's got to be hard to be able to play Vulcan when you said you're not allowed to show emotion. I mean, that's like Geordi. That's like LeVar Burton complaining about, well, I can't act without my eyes, and you took away my
Right.
eyes. I mean, it's got to be incredibly hard. And you look at the staples. I mean, Spock is the essential Vulcan. He set up, Vulcans, and then you got Mark Leonard here. And some people will use them as templates, like T'Pol in Enterprise. They'll model themselves after them. And
My favorite Spock is still Zachary Quinto, though, just because of the emotion that's behind his eyes. Because early on, Vulcans, they say they don't feel emotion. That's early Star Trek. They don't feel emotions, and then later you find out they do feel emotions, and they're just repressing them, and it's always back. And I've always liked Zachary Quinto's portrayal because you can see that he's holding back those emotions, but they're still there in his eyes. And that's actually where you get some of the best Vulcan performances, where you can see they're holding back that emotion.
And that I think you can find even in a lot of Nimoy's.
Oh, sure. Especially later on, especially after the...
Oh, I'm not saying Nimoy didn't do it. I'm just saying I like Zachary.
He does have that moment in Star Trek 6 where he, takes the phaser away from Valeris.
Yeah, that's correct. Now, here we have the next 10 minutes, and Dame Judith Anderson gives the world's most impressive performance of a USB cable.
Well, yeah.
Transferring one bit of information to the one brain to the other.
I think it's
really thrilling shit here.
I think it's emotionally charged to the extreme. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever, tape recorded, like, with a cassette tape, like the movie soundtrack, or just ripped it and put it on your iPod. But if you just listen to this movie, this music is so beautiful. I think it's so moving that the imagery is just dessert to me. I mean, I think the score by Horner really sells this completely.
Well, thank God it is there, because otherwise it's already for me very dull, because there's really nothing going on here, but the music is selling much more than what we're actually seeing. And again, it just goes down to
that was not that long.
No, I never said that. I was exaggerating, obviously, to a point.
I mean, do you think maybe in hindsight it feels longer to you? And,
No, it still feels long. Seriously, I feel like I've been sitting here for 20 minutes on Vulcan. I know we've only been here for about 7-8 minutes, but it feels much longer than
I think
that.
maybe a lot of people, that's why they dismiss this movie, because maybe in their memory they think it's not as good as they think it is. I think people make that mistake when it comes to Wrath of Khan. Wrath of Khan, I never thought was perfect. There's a lot of parts in it I don't think the stuff on Regula, I'll fast forward past that. I mean, the movie's got a lot of dead spots to me. And I think it's people's memory that keeps that movie alive, when I don't think it's...
And it's the love that's felt for it, because, I still want to do a nitpicker commentary on that movie, because you can rip it to pieces, but you still love it because you enjoy it so much you don't care if big parts of it don't really make any sense or are incredibly contrived, because it's a love factor. This saved Star Trek. But in a lot of ways, this sort of got it back on track. I mean, I'm intrigued by the idea of, if Nimoy had not come back, if they would have just continued Star Trek, but basically with Saavik and David Marcus filling Spock's role. I mean, you kind of have to split the character in two. He's certainly much more the scientist, and then having a very strange dynamic with Kirk and his son on the same ship. I mean, that could have been an interesting future for Star Trek, but I don't think it would have worked as much as having Nimoy back, and that's what this movie that's what it did.
And I don't want to give the impression that this is a film that I saw once or twice and dismissed and I've never revisited. I've seen Star Trek 3, with the possible exception of Star Trek 2. I think it's the one I've seen the most. I saw it a ton of times in the theater. I've revisited it a bunch of times on video. I've seen it at least once or twice every 5 years or so. I revisit this movie. So it's not like I'm unfamiliar with it. I know most of it by heart. So my opinion of it has not... The good parts have remained as strong, and in many ways have even been enriched over times. But the weak parts for me stand out even more so because the other stuff is so good. And that's the frustrating thing about this movie for me, is if they had just taken some more time and really strengthened the narrative of the picture, you would have had a film that never would have been an odd numbered curse. There never would have been any talk. There never would have been any talk of one. As a result, you have a movie that's 50% absolutely top notch and 50% just loose connective thread that doesn't really go anywhere.
Well, I think Star Trek V is probably what added more to that curse, I think, because it's just the fact that 4 and 2 were so successful, I think. But
and I mean, this was a very successful.
This did very well too.
Successful, very popular.
Well, I think it's in hindsight, because people think of 1 and 5 as being really awful, when I don't think they are at all. I mean, they're actually really quality films, and I think they lumped that in here just to make it sound good because it's odd. So yeah, it goes there.
Right.
And look at.
I think it is certainly not the strongest. I mean, to me, this is kind of this is in the middle Star Trek.
You know what's funny too is as time goes on for me, 4, even though I've always joked about 4 being my least favorite, 4 does not age well just because they go back to 1986. And
well, now it's become a period piece.
It really is weird. It's kind of awkward, that movie now. Whereas this one, it's just Spock.
Well, there's really nothing to date this other than some obvious hairstyles and fashion choices,
right?
Which you could just chalk up to bad future sense,
right? Bad future fashion. That's all it is.
Well, yeah, Star Trek 4 really does kind of stand out. I think as a black sheep when you look at it in that way, it does. But yeah, it is kind of a period piece. Funny that you mention it that way. Period on the 80s. It's comments on the 80s. Yeah,
it's very much. It saved the whales. Damn near 30 years. It's a Save the Whales movie. If you're under the age of 30, you don't know anything about Save the Whales. That was such a fucking huge thing in the 80s.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, getting back, this isn't very. I do like this moment between the two of them, where he's remembering shit that's going on.
Well, this is what I think makes the movie unique and stand out to me. The fact that we've had this very long sequence with almost no dialogue. I mean, when does this happen in Star Trek? Never. I mean,
and it never happened again.
I think they did it. I think it's masterful. I mean, if you want my honest opinion,
we get the eyebrow.
Oh, yeah.
End on the eyebrow.
Yeah.
You end on the eyebrow because that's how you know it's Spock. That's the sign.
Give us a little cue.
I do like that at this point there is a question of what are they going to do now?
Yeah, I mean they did lose their ship.
The ship is gone. They're drummed out of Starfleet. One of them is legally dead.
Yeah.
Right.
What's
how are they going to explain that shit? It's I don't know. I think maybe I just think if they had restructured it to a certain degree.
So they're as Spock.
As
5 people.
Five names. It's crazy, right?
Well, in closing, since we're in the credits here, and I think the movie leaves us on a hopeful note, but also, like you said, I mean, they did commit treason. They blew up the Enterprise, just all for their friend, and I think that's what makes this the most emotionally impactful for me. The sacrifice that occurs within it, and as the middle part of the Star Trek trilogy, it will always stand out to me as my most to me. I mean, not everyone's going to feel that way, but and my most cherished of all the Star Trek films, and that's how I feel about it personally.
See, for me, I had been a Star Trek fan, or I had liked Star Trek throughout the TV show and syndication. I really enjoyed Star Trek the motion picture a great deal. When I saw it as a kid, and in retrospect, I may have found more fault with it, but it was Star Trek on the big screen. But then Star Trek 2 was what really turned me into a Star Trek fan. So this was the first Star Trek movie I went into as a fan. I actually wore a costume to opening day. I went to the opening day performance with friends in costume, with our technical manuals, and this really was the first time I had an expectation. I bought the soundtrack. I bought the novelization, which was a great novelization. Actually, it's better than the movie turned out to be in a lot of ways. They flesh a lot out. So that's, to me, part of what I like about this movie is just that this was the first movie I saw as a Star Trek fan. And it had a lot of things haven't aged well, and I remembered it less fondly. But when I watched it again, in preparation for this, I was like, I really do like this movie a lot. And it's got some pacing issues, but it's also fairly short. I still like, I just kind of realized, with the exception of Insurrection, I like every Star Trek movie, even the ones that I don't necessarily think are great movies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Insurrection is the best one.
If you want to talk about story problems, I mean, Insurrection it's just the fact that it's not really
I can't get worked up enough about Insurrection one way or
masterpiece.
Well, Justin,
go watch it on Blu-ray right now.
Justin, what are your closing thoughts on the movie?
Great.
I think we lost him. Well,
Movie sucks my dick.
well, Damon, how do you feel? Wrap up your thoughts for us.
I actually similar to Mike, because the more I watch this movie, the more I like it. It's one of those that I'm like, oh, because it was. I come from way after where 1, 3, and 5 are supposed to be the bad movies, and then you go back and watch them, and you go, oh, they're not that bad. They're okay. And then you find little bits and pieces in them, and you go, holy shit, that's great. That builds onto the character of Kirk or Spock or McCoy or any of them. Well, any of the three, because the rest of them get left behind in these movies. But those three characters become icons in these movies, and not necessarily just a TV show. This is where they solidify their epic standing, and that's the reason why we can have Frank Welker. Spock screams. Yeah. That's another Spock.
You see Frank Forrest there. That's Leonard Nimoy.
That's Leonard Nimoy. But yeah, I really like this movie, and can't say enough about it.
It may not be a good movie, but it is good Star Trek.
It is good Star Trek, yeah. But most Star Trek, as we did a couple weeks ago, mediocre of Trek. Most Star Trek is mediocre at best, and sometimes some things rise above that median line, and there's tons of shit in this movie that does rise.
I think this does that, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, all right. How about you, Alan? Any closing thoughts on it?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for asking. Basically, there's such a gap in Star Trek as far as like, not being on TV, no current series and all that stuff. Last movie being a couple years late. It's like, you go back and you're more forced to appreciate it. It's not like if there was continual Star Trek out that would be better, you would not even think about this at all. But because there's only a few movies of the original cast, it's kind of like, what other choice do you have? You either watch this or nothing, so. I guess if you're totally burned out on watching the good ones, you can go back and watch this one. It's okay. I'm glad it's there. Is it a total masterpiece of Star Trekdom and movie making? No, but that's not what to me. That's not, or probably to most people, that's not what Star Trek is about anyway. So I'm happy it's here. It's got some cool key moments and stuff. But man, yeah, it's like a once every 3-year thing. I can check it out and and I do when I watch it. Basically, it takes a new media for me to watch it. So hey, okay, now it's out on Blu-ray. Okay, I'll watch it. Last time I watched it before was like when DVDs were new. Type of a thing. But I'm happy it's there. What can you say?
All right. Well, thanks. I think we've heard from everyone, but you, Mr. Felscher, you have any closing thoughts?
No, pretty much whatever I just said.
Okay.
The movie works in many ways, and it just, I think it's memorable for the individual moments rather than as a whole. And having watched it again now, that pretty much just confirms what I've always felt about the movie. I guess it's good. I guess it's good that nothing has dimmed, in my opinion, of the good stuff. The good stuff still works really well, and so that's the best thing I can say about it.
I do have a question for everyone, though.
Okay.
So where do you place Star Trek 3 in the ranking of the original series? Let's leave the next gen movies on, but looking at the 6, where does this go? For me, it's after 2 and 6. I probably put this and 4. No, you know what? I think I put 5. I've learned to love 5, strangely enough, more than both
5's
this
great.
and 4. So yeah, I would put this and 4 pretty comparable, above the first one. But if I'm feeling generous to 5, I might put 5 above it.
Well, it all depends. I mean, they're all good in their own separate ways, but as to rank them, I would say this is. I said it was my most cherished, so yeah, I guess I put it at number 1 for me.
Yeah, definitely the middle. It's not the best of them. It's not the worst of them. It has its moments, and I almost want somebody to actually take the best moments of all 6 of the Star Trek movies and piece them together into one great fucking awesome Star Trek movie.
Someone will do it one day.
Actually, it would be neat to combine 2, 3, and 4 into one long movie.
Could be done. All right. Well, the movie's ended, but I just want to thank everyone for sitting with us and watching the movie with us. It's been a lot of fun to give Star Trek 3 some attention, some love. I just want to thank everyone for coming on the commentary with me, Mr. Felscher, Mike Ortiz, Alan.
Thanks for having us.
And Damon. Thanks a lot, guys. It's been a lot of fun. Sorry I kept you up so late, but...
I had fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Well, until next time, this is Josh, and I'm signing off.